In today's video, we're going to be filming this solid color flower motif granny square. So sit back and join me for a full crochet video tutorial. This granny square motif is going to be worked over 5 rounds, and it's made just like a traditional granny square, except on this inner circle we're going to be working a slightly different motif than we would on a regular humble granny square. So go ahead and grab your materials. The hook size I'm using is a 6mm crochet hook. You will need a pair of scissors, as well as whatever yarn you have on hand. I'm using a medium worsted weight yarn here. It is a cotton acrylic blend. To get started with my granny square, I am just going to find the end of the yarn and bring it over my fingers to create a slip knot. Pull the yarn through to create this knot, and using your crochet hook, go ahead and attach the yarn to the hook. Pull the short end of the tail to secure it. Get set up to start working, and for this you could either create a magic circle, or what I like to do is chain 3 simple chains. So we're going to close that series of chain 3 to create a little hole here. This hole is where we're going to work our stitches. So just go ahead and pull through that yarn, and what we're doing here is closing those chains of 3 to create a little hole. This little hole is where we're going to start working our stitches. Start by chaining 1, and into that hole we're going to be working 8 single crochet stitches. Just bring the yarn through each time until you have 8 stitches worked into that center opening. At the point where you have 8 stitches, you're just going to work under the stitch head of that first chain 1, and you're going to just pull the yarn through like a slip stitch to close your first round. Okay, so here's the first round, and we have 8 single crochet. To begin the second round, we're going to chain 3. In each stitch around, we're going to be working 3 double crochet. And you're going to be working into the same space as the chain for a double crochet. Be sure to pull up the yarn here so that your stitches don't get too tight. And then into that same space, work a second double crochet. The chain 3 does count as a stitch, so by the time we're finished with this, we're going to have 3 double crochet all into the same space. So into the next stitch, insert your hook and pull up a loop as you would for double crochet. Repeat this 2 more times so that you have 3 double crochet worked into the same space. Here you can see that we have worked into 2 stitches, so we have a total of 6 double crochet into those 2 stitches. We're going to just continue following this same motif around, working 3 double crochet into each of the single crochet stitches from round 1. By the time you're done with this round, you should have 24 double crochet stitches total. To count your stitches, you can either count your clusters of 3, or you can count the individual double crochet stitches around. To close the round, you're just going to work under the stitch head of the first chain and you're going to put your hook in, grab the yarn, and pull through to create a slip stitch. This is just going to close the round so that you have a circle. You can see on the original square that we've worked the 2 rounds to form this center circle. Next, we're going to be working these spokes that create the flower motif. Over the next round, we're going to be working a series of double crochet together, working across 3 stitches at a time. Chain 4, yarn over, and into the next stitch from the chain, you're going to insert your hook, pull through the yarn, and pull through for 1 portion of a double crochet. Instead of finishing the double crochet, leave that remaining loop on the hook. Do this once more, working half of the double crochet, and as you can see, we're going to have 3 stitches here. At this point, we're going to double crochet them together, so just pull that yarn through to complete your little spoke. Chain 2. You're not going to skip any stitches here, but you are going to work across 3 stitch heads, double crocheting together. So don't work into this first stitch because that's where the last stitch is coming out of, but into the next one. Into the next unworked stitch head, we're going to be working a double crochet. But instead of finishing the double crochet as usual, we are going to leave that yarn on the hook. So leave the last yarn on the hook. You'll have 2 loops here. Yarn over, insert into the next stitch, and work in the same way, completing only half of that double crochet. You now have 3 loops on the hook and 2 stitches have worked. You're going to do this once more so that you have a 3rd double crochet onto your hook. Pull through all of the double crochet loops. We've pulled through 3 loops here. You now have 2 loops on the hook and you're going to pull through those last 2. It's a simple step and it creates this kind of stitched together look that makes the flower identifiable in the center of the granny square. So we've now done that twice. On the original square, you can see that's where these holes are kind of created to give it a petaled look. I'll show you again so you can work another petal with me. So to work this again, we're going to go across the next 3 stitches. Be sure you don't work into that already worked stitch or your stitch count will be off, but it's the next 3. Start by chaining 2. You're going to chain 2 between each petal. Begin working your first of the 3 double crochets together. Pull up enough yarn so that your stitches aren't too tight. Pull through 1 portion of the double crochet, leaving that remaining loop on the hook. Do this once more. You now have 2 double crochet on the hook still, and you're going to do your 3rd double crochet in the same way. You now have 3 double crochet with the loop still remaining on the hook. Pull through those 3 loops. You now have 2 loops, 1 from the previous and 1 to complete. After you complete those, you can see that another petal has been created. You just chain 2 to get to your next set of petals. Working across, you are going to have 8 petals. You can see the flower is starting to take shape here. At the point where you've come to your last petal, I'm going to show you I have 2 double crochet here, and I need to work my 3rd into that very last stitch. It could look like it's getting taken over by the turning chain, but really you need to work into it and just make sure that you have 8 petals when you're finished. So here's my 8th petal. I'm closing up the 3 double crochets together. I'm also going to finish with that chain 2. And into the first turning chain where I had those 4 stitches, I'm just going to go into it and close with a slip stitch. This closes my circle. Now you'll see that the circle shape here is curled. So what I'm going to do is just tug on the yarn a little bit to kind of loosen up my stitches and help it lay flat. It's okay if it curls just a little bit. It does give it that texture in the finished granny square, as you can see here. The next 2 rounds are just going to be a series of simple double crochet clusters, finishing off the granny square and taking it from round to square shaped. To begin the next round, we're going to be working into the holes between the petals we just created. This is going to be the fourth round. So to begin, we're going to chain 3. Turn your work before working this next round. Work into the next opening, 2 double crochet. The chain 3 does count as a stitch here. You're going to chain 2 and into the same space work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 double crochet, a chain 2, and 3 more double crochet. Into this next space, we're going to work 3 double crochet. So I'm not chaining here. I'm just going directly into the space and I'm working 1, 2, 3 double crochet. So I have a corner space, and then this next cluster is going to be the middle of the granny square. Into the next opening, I'm going to create another corner. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3. Followed by a chain 2. You're going to chain 2 always into the corner space. And then 3 more double crochet into that same opening. This creates the corner. You're going to have 4 corners, as well as you're going to have 4 double crochet clusters in between them on this round. So let's look at what we have. We have our first corner created, our middle, and then another corner created. You can see that this is working 2 corners of this granny square. Into this next opening, we're working 3 double crochet. And then into the next opening, we're creating our third corner. So start with 3 double crochet. Chain 2, always at the corner space, and another series of 3 double crochet into that same space to create the corner. This is going to be our third corner of the square. You can see it starting to come together here. When you get to the point of making your last double crochet cluster, make sure you're working into the correct space and not confusing that turning chain with the space you should be working into. So you're going to be working into the chain 2 space, not the turning chain space, for your final 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm just going to close this round into the top of the stitch head of that first turning chain that I had. So now your square is closed and you'll turn it over to begin working the next round of this motif. We're just going to be working another double crochet cluster series into the next round, and it's different because you'll have 2 sets of double crochet in between each corner rather than 1 set. So start with a chain 3. Into that first space right next to the chain, you're going to be working 2 double crochet. The chain 3 does count as a stitch just as before. And then you're going to find your next opening in between your double crochet clusters. There's not a chain space here, it's just the opening between the clusters. And you're going to be working another 3 double crochet. So I now have 2 double crochet clusters here. This is the side of the granny square. We're then going to be working into the corner. So into that corner space, just as before, you're going to be working 3 double crochet. You're going to make the chain 2, and you're going to work 3 more double crochet into that same space. You can see here I have 2 double crochet and then I have my first corner created. I'm going to follow this motif working all the way around. So I have a corner with 2 double crochet clusters before working my next corner. And to close the round just as before, insert your hook into that turning stitch head and just pull through. I'm going to cut the yarn at this point because I'm not going to make it any larger. And I'm just going to secure that yarn so that my granny square doesn't unravel before I sew in the ends. Here you have it. You might want to stretch it or block it a little bit, but it is a beautiful flower motif granny square made in solid color yarn.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that little notification bell for more.